Thanks for the invite from the climate team, and delighted to be here and talk about biodiversity. And it's certainly a passion of mine. And I suppose as a biodiversity officer, me and my counterparts were sort of put in place. The job was created, if you like, back about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I've been in this job 2.5 years, one of the first ones. And we've our biodiversity action plan, which we launched here back on the 21st of March. So that's our ambition in Offaly, and that's what myself and our colleagues and the different sections across the council work to when we're trying to implement biodiversity measures through our various plans and projects and day-to-day stuff. So that's what we do. It's about making space for nature. It's about managing our spaces for nature. So that's really what it's all about. And that obviously plays a huge part in the DZ in terms of, like, we talked a lot about communities here, with Jack and everything. And an ecosystem is a community. It's a community of plants and animals. And where it thrives, where it works, the nature and the overall environment benefits. And we all know about how trees sequester carbon and store it there, how our soil and our peatlands and all that sort of stuff. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I was aware when I seen where I was billed today that you had to have already listened to an awful lot of facts and figures and graphs and stuff. So I said I'd take it easy on you now for the penultimate one. So we're going on a small, short nature walk around the DZ, if you'll humour me for a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk about some of the species and things you might encounter by doing so. So here's our route for today. We're down in the bottom right hand corner, just under the DZ logo, and we're starting here in Orason Conte in the office in Offaly County Council HQ. And we're going to take a right outside the building, and we're going to head sort of for town, and we're going to take then a left into the park. But before we do that, so we're starting here. But what you mightn't know if you don't work in the council is that the council offices is built in a beautiful mature garden, and we have a biodiversity garden surrounding. And when we go down for our tea in the mornings, we look out over the bird feeders, and we have up to more than 35 species of birds regularly visiting our feeders in the winter. So it's quite a diverse garden because of the mature trees and the woodland that was retained when the building was built. We have No More May there and other initiatives to encourage wildlife, and this is just the cowslips back in May there. So we carry out the policies of the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, and we're council partners, the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, and all that sort of stuff. And we do that across all our sections and our MDs and our parks and any sort of lands we manage or influence how they're managed. So big effort on No More May this year. Lots of orchids and rare plants popping up all over the place, and places you mightn't sort of typically think about wildflowers in cemeteries and greens in residential areas and all that sort of stuff. So we really do lean into it best we can to try and encourage pollinators, which are the baseline of many ecosystems and many of those ecological communities we talk about, because they form the food for the bigger, more exciting animals, I suppose, that we like to see on a day-to-day. And this is one of them. This is a long-eared owl, and this is a chick that you could view from one of his sibling and himself were here this time last summer, which you could see from the upper echelons of the offices in Tullamore MD, from the Director of Services offices out onto our mature woodland, if you like. And these two guys were hanging out, him and his brother or sister, after they fledged. And these are long-eared owls. These are the most numerous species of owl we have in the country, but they're also the least seen because they're nocturnal, being owls, but they're also very elusive and secretive. And the only time you ever hear them or come across them normally is when the youngsters, when they're this size, they start calling to their mother for food. And it's exactly this time of year. I don't know if you're familiar with the sound. It's like a squeaky gate, a rusty gate opening. It's a very long, drawn-out squeak. And it's a really nice thing. If you live in the countryside or if you have a farm, you might hear it this time of year. So last year we were made aware of the owls around the place. And I would say the owls did... They created so much awareness in 24 hours by their appearance. They've done more than I've done in 2.5 years of work here. So I owe them a lot. We haven't seen them this year. I don't know if they were successful, but they're fantastic. Beautiful predatory owl. I mean, they hunt like barn owls for rodents and small animals like that by night. But they need mature hedgerows, bits of woodland, native woodland and stuff, and that's where they hang out. So you've been wondering what they're doing on the edge of Tullamore, but if we look at sort of our hedgerows, our rivers, our canals as corridors for nature and biodiversity through our towns and villages and these ecological stepping stones, that's what we're talking about. So that's what we're trying to create and link into all our plans and policies and planning policy as we go forward. So we're really, really cognizant of that and really trying hard. And I suppose we can't be talking about both sides of our mouth. So we try and manage things at the Áras where we'd like to see things sort of further afield. So then we're gone down towards the park and we hang a left, and the park is a very functioning public park for picnicking, for playing, for sports, for recreation, whatever you would normally find in a park typically. But at the bottom of the park, at the end of the park, is the Tullamore River, and this is part of the Tullamore River. It's not the next picture isn't sort of. It doesn't look wonderful because when this photo was taken, we had just performed some in-stream works to improve the river for fish, for the fish and the other freshwater life in part of the Tullamore River project. And you can see here, it's a corridor of about 120 metres. The park's at the end, the pedestrian bridge that brings you into town onto Main Street. And I'm stood on the bridge back with Tullamore wetlands behind me. And what we've done here is you've got this lovely, mature, dark corridor, which allows the bats, I suppose, a refuge to be able to forage at night up and down the river. You've got these boulders that were mentioned earlier on, and this gravel for spawning salmon and trout, the salmonoids. And that's what's often lost in rivers that are heavily modified. So we're trying to put back those ecological features that once existed in the river, and we've achieved that. And if you go down there now, it's all sort of rewilded and it's back to its sort of functioning ecosystem, if you like. You're trying to build a diversity into the river, into the riparian zone, as it's known, to be good for insects, for invertebrates, for your mammals, for your fish, all those things. So here's one of the specialists that enjoy those modifications, if you like, and that's a de Benton's bat. He looks quite aggressive, but he's only about that size. And if you're not an insect, a tiny flying insect, he's of no danger to you. Bats don't get caught in your hair. That's all sort of old wives' tales, should we call them. And he is busy flying up and down the river, hoovering up the insects that otherwise would be bugging you when you're having your barbecue or having a few cans outside or whatever. So we have to thank this little guy for performing his duties, but he needs a little help from us in that those insects only exist in healthy freshwater bodies where they exist as eggs first, and then they hatch, and then they sort of hatch off the surface of the water and they fly off. And you've all seen the ad with the mayfly and all that. A lot of insects, that's how they live their lives. So these guys are in Tullamore. They're very busy at the moment this time of year, and because they've got maternity roosts at the minute. So all the mothers, they're mammals, so they feed their young milk. So what the mothers do is come dark, they let the little cub crawl off, little pup is what a baby bat's called, crawl off them in the roost. It could be in a bridge, could be in an old building near to water, an old mill, and then they go out and fly around and get insects, and that allows them to sort of keep the energy they need to produce milk, and then they go back and basically feed the young milk for all day, and then they go back out at night. So it's very important that we protect both their roost sites and the areas where they forage, and they're in big maternity roosts at the minute. So could be a couple of hundred bats in one of those. So then we turn around and we're going to Tullamore Wetlands, which is a new wetland. It's a created habitat. It's a mecca for wildlife. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just like a couple of 100 yards from the train station, and it is on the edge of town, but it's also connected to the open landscape and the countryside. So it's perfectly placed, really, as a sort of an ecological I suppose refuge for wildlife in the town coming and going. So it's got ideal situation here off the river. Here's the main stream of the river, and then you've got this lovely open freshwater ecosystem, and that's a good nursery area for small fish. We have a number of nesting species there now, including sedge warblers, which are a migratory bird from Africa, which we hadn't there before. You've got ducks, you've moorhens, you have coot all nesting there. And these are all species where the habitat was not available for them along the river until the wetland was created. And then that's just the freshwater habitats. That's creating stuff for amphibians, all the insects and vertebrates, the snails, all those things, the creepy crawlies in the water that we don't really care much for, but they're very, very important in their own ecological ecosystems and communities. Then there's the terrestrial habitats, and this site is the best site I know for wildflowers in Offaly, and it's absolutely alive at the moment with insects and butterflies and hoverflies and all those things you'd expect to be visiting those flowers for nectar and pollen. So it's a real good news story, and it's something I'd like to replicate in other towns and villages around the county and see happening elsewhere as well. I think it's a real good news story. So we get people out all the time. This is a photo taken. I see my time's up. I'm going to cut it short now. But it's really important to get people out and enthuse them on what we're doing, so they they go home and do the same things themselves, in, like Ashley said, in their garden or whatever. So we're trying really hard to do that. So there you go. I mean, I want to start Ashley before one last species, swifts. Tullamore is the third best town for swifts in the county. They are really doing badly across the globe. They're declining at rates, but they live in our houses and our old buildings, and Tullamore is quite a strong place for them. Swifts, once they fledge from a nest, they don't land again until they breed. A swift can be in flight, constant flight, for 3 years till it stops nesting, and that is not a joke. So just bear with it. These animals are amazing. I say Google or ChatGPT swifts, the common swift, and find out more about them, because I haven't got time to tell you about today. But Tullamore is full of them, so look up and look out for swifts and make space for nature. Thanks, Ashley.